Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 139th episode of Book of Hours, our first YouTube run through House of Light. Now, I'm going to have to start with a little bit of housekeeping for the week, and I do apologize for this. So for those of you who have been watching the live stream, which hasn't been Book of Hours, so I don't expect a lot of overlap, but you'll notice I actually missed my first broadcast in a really long time, probably years, on Friday. And in fact, I'm probably going to have to cancel Mondays as well. And this is just because for the last little while, I've been really struggling with a big workload at work. Sometimes emergencies come up and I need to deal with them. And unfortunately, that is affecting this set of recordings as well. I worked through the weekend, and I was originally going to do just a video saying that I needed to take the week off, but the fact of the matter is I probably have half an hour to record this, and I wanted at least to get Monday's episode in. However, it's also very late at night on Sunday. I need to be in early tomorrow. And so I'm going to try and take the opportunity to record things throughout the week if I can, but of course if I'm canceling streams, I'm probably not going to be able to record the videos as well. So if the stream is not up on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, I apologize in advance. Sometimes these things happen. As this video gets older, obviously it will become more stale, but I didn't want to run the risk of sort of throwing people off scheduling wise. But these things sometimes happen, and if if it becomes clear that I'm not going to be able to maintain the same cadence with the videos, I'll try and do a more formal announcement of that. So we do have quite a few things to do, and I've got them all listed on the to-do list. So what I've got written down here will be the Salon, replace the Wind and Waiting. It does say Path and Pilgrim +1, so I think we decided that the last of the to-read list, the Queens of the Rivers, would be something that we do add to the move that up in terms of lessons. And then I believe we had learned something that would allow me to get a treasure of the house, but I'm not 100% sure where or when I'm ready to do that. So let's start by kind of rolling over into the... Right, I don't have a memory to use. So we can cross over into the next day. Once the day starts, we'll send out the invitations. The one thing I'm not so clear on, though, will also make some money. There's not much work on offer in Brandcrude, but I can find 6 pence worth of odd jobs, or add a coin to find visitors seeking employment. It did occur to me that I've got more than enough shaft, so I probably didn't need to do that. But all right, send out the invitation to Zachary. Stamp, envelope, send. Now, the question here is, do I have what it takes to get a... It was the Wind and Waiting that I wanted. So that requires the Mazarine Fife. In fact, if I go up to the workbench, so as a temporary measure, I will add the astrolabe, but I think we can do better. I don't remember. Oop, wrong workbench. Pretty sure, well, I remember Furs and Feathers, but I think there was another one that I wanted. So I'm going to start with the Foss just for... Okay, so that's the Didymos. I think it's usually a keeper level... I'm slowly moving towards the option that I think it is, and I just don't want to admit. You know what? Let's add the Ascendant Harmony just so we can get those numbers up. So I kind of know that if I go down to Furs and Feathers... Oh! Right, because we don't have the... Where would I get 4 Sky from? So clearly I have another skill. That's 14, so that might be off. I feel like Aranoscopy has some possibilities. I also should have Stargalling somewhere. Oh, excuse me. To be completely honest, I also don't need to worry about this right away. Yeah, that doesn't work. All right, you know what? I'm gonna chuck this for now. I may change my mind once we get the weather. Sunny day. If there was ever a time for wind and waiting, it's today. I can't remember if these let me put instruments in. No, because they're instruments themselves. I'll confess, I was kind of hoping it wouldn't be something like a sunny day, which gives me 2 sky, because that's on the edge. If it's something like a storm, then you kind of know you have it. This one's a little more marginal, so... Oh, actually, it doesn't let me add the Ascendant Harmony. So I'd want something that lets me put a tool in... But you know what? Weirdly enough, the Pale Desk might be the more appropriate location. Which means, of course, I don't need to wait for the weather, but we may mess around with that still. Okay. And I should probably take notes at this point, but let's just see what the... Hang on, no, the papers don't work. Yeah, that was what I was worried about. Great clock. Doesn't let me put a tool in. I'm guessing my options for tools for Sky Altars won't really be there. So I think the workbench probably is my best bet. But then the problem is that doesn't really change the calculation that I had before. So one thing I will do, I know I replaced the feather earlier. But at this point here, at the very least, I can just see what my highest sky to work with the wind and waiting will be. So if we add the sky stories, all right, so we get one there. It's actually one higher than it needs to be. So the funny thing on this one is if I do actually find a solution to this problem, if I can find, for instance, no, hang on. I don't even need to worry. Well, okay, I give up the Ascendant Harmony and a Faust, actually. It's not that big of a deal for me. I think I'm just going to leave the Sky Stories. My concern here is if I give up the Faust too early, then I'm potentially going to need that during the Salon. So I'll give up the Ascendant Harmony, I'll give up the Faust when I know I can afford it, and then we'll restore the Wind and Waiting from there. I may also be able to get away with something other than a Sky Stories. Also just going to double check that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Notably, right, because we weren't sure what Eason wanted. So we should be able to get that now. We'll actually just double check that all the aspects are correct. So in this case, Zachary prefers winter food and drink. Arthur Moore prefers lantern food and drink. Did I order? I'm pretty sure I already accounted for that, but let me just double check. Yep, double lanterns. D.I. Moore wants lantern. Eason Fekri wants moon food but sky drink. And Serena would like forage, food, and drink. So I don't think we have too many options as far as the sky drink goes. However, we've got a lot of the Blue Crown tea hanging around. So I think the time has come for us to pour some of that out. Pour out. I'm not ready to read Path and Pilgrim. Path and Pilgrim. I'm not quite ready to read Queens of the Rivers yet. I don't think there's a lot of reasons for me to get too bent out of shape about reading it too early. We've got lots of time left in the summer, and the I believe we were planning on pushing up the oh god, it's one of the stories, or no, Path and Pilgrim. It was one of the Rose ones. We were planning on pushing that up reasonably high. So actually, I'll be honest, there isn't a great reason for me to hold back on it, but I do get the benefit of the memory. So it's nice to just have the option to see what skills we're leveling up before, and then the Queens of the Rivers is a nice, easy one for us to bump something up when the time comes. It is summer. I'm sitting on the bench outside the Sweet Bones, eating crumbly cheese and nettle wrappings and good black rye bread, soaking up the sun. Zachary received my invitation? He did. We'll do the introductions and talk about the food when everybody's in. So I don't believe it will tell me if the dishes are incorrect until the proper time. Yeah, one might only have lunch or supper after midday. I think we're fine, but it's always nice to build up the moment. Although I appreciate here, it's kind of waiting a third of the stream just for the timer to run by. Again, it'd be nice to be able to do a few other things. The shaft is really the one that I should be putting to work because I can't see a situation where I need all 8 of them during a salon. So I'll bring the health back. But the tendency I've noticed for myself is that I leave the stuff that I read too late. So I'm going to try and employ a little bit more shaft over the course of a salon. And then the hope here will be that we have enough of a foundation in terms of the memories to be able to get the outcomes we're looking for. All right, so it's midday, and let's just make sure that we've got... Yep, everything's good. So we've invited Mr. Zachary Wakefield, marksman, detective, renegade. He has always been a quiet man, but since he left the Suppression Bureau, he's grown even quieter and terribly still, except for his fingers and for his eyes, always in restless motion. He also now has a fear of nowhere. This one understands the all-consuming horror of the gods from nowhere and has the agenda revelation. This one wishes to share knowledge despite Calyptra. Lieutenant Arthur Moore, hero, pilgrim, traitor. He'll always be a soldier, but never again can he only be a soldier. Also, Arthur is fond of his newly acquainted great-nephew, Douglas. Douglas, Detective Illuminate of the Suppression Bureau, a stoic but weary fellow. His dearest wish is to move to Chingford and grow roses, but the buggers won't let him retire. Douglas is fond of his newly discovered great-uncle, Arthur. Mr. Eason Feckery. Formerly, Eason was a healer. He was not human. He was Secretary Salvant of Hush House, but not all at the same time. Fussy, kind, famously foul to look upon. And Dr. Serena Blackwood, one-time librarian of Hush House, one-time librarian of the Invisible Serapeum in Alexandria, and currently what exactly? Serena is close-mouthed, but I know that she has worked with the St. Ronwin Trust. For the Salon, we will be enjoying poached mackerel. We do not poach fish in Brandkrug without recalling the turbot crisis of 1786, when Dr. Westcott caught a prodigious turbot and required the kitchen to poach it for him without division, but no vessel of sufficient size was found to poach it entire. At last, they resorted to alchemical assistance. Mackerel, fortunately, requires no alchemy for its poaching. we will be enjoying Stargazy Pie, which does actually already have potatoes inside of it, so it's potato overload, but we are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars. Wild Lady Windermere's fan. Roast potatoes. You really need rosemary for roast potatoes, but fortunately the kitchen garden at Hush House has never been short of rosemary. And we have orange jumble. They should be the size of teacup rims and should curl their crisp edges faintly pink as the underneath of a young mushroom. Lady Jekyll kitchen essays. And Cornish honey cake. Under no circumstances should this ever be confused with Devonshire honey cake, which everyone in Brankrug would instantly identify as an inferior variation. And we will be enjoying Evening Isles coffee, coffee from beyond the Sunset Sea, Dawn Lion coffee, coffee from beyond the Great Deserts, Blue Crown tea, always served cold, more accurate to say inevitably served cold, Honey Scar Jasmine tea, soothing to the senses, and Isle water from Brankrug's deep springs. Bring light back to the mirrors where once Lady Ava held court. My guests take their places for lunch. So we will have interruptions as we do the various runs to the Sweet Bones. Lunch and supper last longer than less formal salons, allowing an extra interaction between your guests. So I should remember that there's going to be 6 total interactions, and I should keep my my soul tallies in mind. Invite a challenge, add a metal card. All right, so we're 1 down. Stargazy pie, Eason exclaims. He snaffles a slice. Brankrug at its best. I've been going to the Sweet Bones for this since, well, longer than I care to remember. The stories the fishermen tell. So we got sea stories for that. I can't remember. I think we had already committed sea story. Or no, we couldn't because it's 2. So that'll be a good one. In fact, I'm going to start keeping track. So this would be an excellent example where I could take, say, Beguiling Melody using the Shapt, and we're no lower. In fact, I could do Beguiling Melody and Confounding Parable, and we're no worse off because we now know that we only have 5 elements of the soul to work with. Inject a little gaiety, add a core card. Serena offers to shape a prison for Zachary and his passenger if things become too dire. He will consider it. He wryly shares his thoughts on what might contain him. Listen, glass flowing and vessel crafting. So I thought we had already moved to the level that we wanted on that, but apparently not. Well, I shouldn't say apparently not. There's no reason to... There's a number of reasons why that may not be committed yet, but it's one for me to think about. Actually, let's do that again. So that's going to be one that I'm less likely to do during the Salon, just because I would need 7 memories, knock and sky memories, and then of course I would need the knock by the end. So I might be able to find a division between things like Fet and Shapt at this point, but it's definitely going to be a very heavy use of my elements of the soul at a time that I probably can't afford it. All right, conversation ebbs and flows. Exalted debates, a more somber tone. Add a Faust card. So good thing that I didn't give up too many of them. We're at the point now where I believe every element of the soul can be used for the... I think we're guaranteed to get a complete Salon at this point. Zachary and Douglas reminisce about a case they both worked on years ago when they had to find a way to bind a Thryceros, which had somehow found its way into the Thames. Douglas recalls how the binding process first awakened his enthusiasm for knitting, and Zachary makes the necessary effort to fold his face into a smile. Quenchings and quellings. Okay. I think that one's a freebie. It is indeed. So I'm just going to take a second on this. So I should put a little bit of thought into what kind of heart and wind. Actually, this is the point I really should be thinking about these extra points. So if I were to look at my wish list, I'd say glass blowing and vessel crafting is actually probably a free one. Weirdly enough, I could probably... no, the sea story still needs to be boosted, though. Could probably go for a ronoscopy with glass blowing and vessel crafting. Also glazery and lightsmith. I mean, all of these are hard ones to do, though, so let's think here. Okay, so first of all, conversation, ebbs and flows, reason, discussion, raise a complex question, add a whist card. So where are we at? So we've got, we'll have 4, so I need 2 more of each of these. Let's take a chance on our sky and moon memories. So the way I'm going to handle this... If I want to try and raise a ronoscopy, that means I need to keep a tryst or a fost aside. I'll only need 2 of any given element of the soul. Now the first and obvious one for me to work with is any knock that I can get my hands on. And then working with the music also makes the most sense. So we'll do... I can't remember if we've done unhatched hymns or singlefoot songs most recently, but either one works. Okay, so there goes the Sabazine. I'm curious if we can put knock or forge into one of the phonographs. We can. Okay, that's 2. Confounding parables. Excuse me. I don't remember which of these we're on. Let's start with the Snare of the Tree. And I think at this point I'd like to try and switch up to the Fet, but I also think I painted myself into a corner here in terms of the... Yeah. I'm running out of desks that makes sense for. Okay, so not a terrible plan, but didn't quite make it all work. So what I'll do instead is I'll go to Ava's desk. We'll use the edge with the metal. And then I guess assault will work in this case. So that should get me a ronoscopy unless we wind up with... No, even then we'd use the tryst. So we're guaranteed to be able to level up a ronoscopy by the end of the Salon. I should even consider maybe trying another one. Sea stories. Well, we can use the satisfaction for that one. And then maybe I bring in a... let's do a contradiction. But what table do I want to give that up at? Can afford to do metal. actually don't know. That's fears. This is contradictions. I guess we're on to the Ascendant again? So we should be up 2 memories by the end of that. Aeson and Serena reminisce about their time at Hush House in the days of its power, when the winds were leashed to keep the seas safe, when the fine-takers still responded to the words of the Covenant. Sacra Solus Invicti. Okay, I think that'll actually help us. We won't worry about it today, but... Instinct and Emotion, add a Tryst card. Alright, so that makes it a little awkward, but we should have finished off the Salon at this point. Arthur and Zachary reminisce about London at night and how it has changed and how they have changed. Lesson Ragged Crossroads. So that one I might actually throw into Edict's Marshal, depending on how the day goes. And we should be able to chuck that shaft in. In fact, I'm at a point where maybe I want to think about... So we can definitely use the FET for a few of these. Can't use it for sea stories here, of course, but... I'm not too optimistic about what I'm going to find from the Gull Colony, but we can still work with it. And then... I don't exactly need these, but let's go... Furs and feathers. And we might as well take advantage of the opportunity to harvest. Although maybe I don't need to be using the garden. There are other things I can be picking up right now. Okay, we've got... So it's summer, it's moth orchid, fragrant child. That's not a... you know what? I'm going to hold off. We'll give that potentially another day. I also forgot about the sunny day, so we've over... Oh! Invite a challenge. Add a metal card. So definitely too early on that. I don't think it'll affect the overall plans, but I clearly got ahead of myself. Zachary and Serena talk about the Wheellocks of Treowyn, and in particular poor doomed Gregory, the demi-dyad, but they conclude that nothing in that sad story will help Zachary. Door and wall, so I think that's another freebie for me. And here are our memories. Cougar Prisoner Records, 1928. Accounts by Governor Collar's private secretary of interventions and experiments in the last years of the Cougar prison, focusing particularly on the hill children, wild wood things that have found a shape in the physical world. Something called a Singlefoot, a horned mountain dweller, is brought back from some kind of embassy to the Grove of Green Immortals. Collars expresses his irritation that Gervinus Van Loren refuses to assist in its containment. The Singlefoot somehow conjures an earthquake that cracks the tower and enables its escape. Collars determines that it should not have been permitted to dream while kept beneath the earth. It had access to sufficient scale aspect to use its arts of hill and hollow to develop an old moment into an earthquake name. He mandates above-ground confinement for all hill children prisoners in the future. Unhatched hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworkers and name of the hour called Meniscate. The hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next. Madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The hymn of the phases celebrates the Meniscate from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The Hymn of the Reflections, more puzzlingly, celebrates the Menascate as the sister of Janus, mother of Shadow, whose visage wondrous in emptiness can reveal all truths. Opening the Sky, an unusual recording of Varro's Opening the Sky, composed for the coronation of the new king, Henry IX. The record bears the suppression stamp Expunge. The first movement is soft, autumnal. The second, unsettling, febrile. The third is bright, soaring, rapturous. The fourth movement is glassy, slithering, a tintinnabulous icicle rattle. The fifth returns to the theme of the third, bright and rapturous once again, but this is a choral movement. It becomes apparent, though, that these are much, much too pure and high to be human voices. They recall birdsong. They recall the sweep of the windswept sky, blue turning black at the edge of the higher heaven. And they wrench the heart in a direction the Bureau does not permit. The Intimations of Skin, fiendishly complex, weirdly distorted illustrations of Congress and anatomy by the haunted visionary painter Niels Fredrik Malsker. Malsker illuminates the evolutions of the names of the Grail with unfortunate clarity. It seems that a lovely who consumes an ivory becomes an ivory, a lovely who consumes a thirstly becomes a thirstly, a lovely who consumes a name of another hour might take its place. In the penultimate illustration, a lovely grapples with a fungoid knot that can only be a name of the crowned growth. The lovely's mouth and other portals gape wide, but the growth name is already partially engulfed. But it seems that Malsker couldn't bring himself to illustrate the result, and the final illustration is only a scrawled, bloated obscurity. Snare of the Tree, collected proverbs of Aunt Mopsy. Once in the wood we call a visit, twice in the wood we call a journey, thrice we call coming home. Every timber has its knots, the straight and crooked both. Every weave is more absence than thread. You can't keep nowhere out any more than you can keep somewhere in. When the cuckoo learns the nightingale's song, our sleep is sweeter than honey. And the Ascendant, the edge-long Dardish, boasts of her victories over her brother enemy Tareg in the days of the Shadowless Empire. Sweeter than wine, than nectar is the blood of my brother. We have raised up armies one against another. We have sated the Blackbone with the sinking of our ships. Dardish's boasting at length turns melancholy, and Edgelong is half a dyad. She may not defeat her hated brother enemy without ending herself. She doesn't even want to, but she is aware, to her frustration, that she is a piece on the board, an axle on the ox cart, an essential part of the eternal engine of contention which the Lionsmith and Colonel use to sustain the world. Let's go back to the Salon, make sure we're not missing anything else. Okay. My guests leave happy. You've gained an additional potent memory, so we're expecting both the satisfaction as well as the curious hunch. It's one of the reasons why we were eager to use the curious hunch last season. There we go. I'll confess I was sort of expecting a few more... I was expecting a few more sort of warnings that we'd already done something, but I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. Curious hunch stays put. Door and Wall's a freebie. Ragged Crossroads a new freebie. Let's put you up here. Freebie. Wait a minute, so which of these? I think it was glass blowing and vessel crafting? Alright, so let's start with the Uranoscopy, just because that's going to involve the most work to level up. Also, we have the chance to restore it if it comes down to it, so... Oh, and I only needed 4. Wow, I really blew this one. Okay, so we'll take the Sunny Day. I'm going to be trying to level up Sea Stories, which wants Grail and Moon, so I can move the Beguiling Melody up here. And yeah, I guess the question is, do I want to try and keep the Salt or the Confounding Parable? I'll move the Salt in. So satisfying to have come so far. So this gives me a little more breathing room. I can only take one of these overnight. Put Ragged Crossroads up higher. Yeah, I think for most, if not all of these, I count these as free. which again, I don't think is going to have that big of an impulse. Oh, sorry, impulse. I don't think is going to have that big of an effect on reading the Queens of the Rivers and moving up Path and Pilgrim. But it is, of course, nice for me to know when I may need to... Oh, night has fallen. Dawn will come soon. I'm expecting we'll get a bunch of stuff from our scrounging. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. Alright, the skill is now level 5. Its power aspects have also increased. Are we already at 5? We are, but I have a feeling that we'll probably find opportunities to move this over. Alright. Sea stories. I'll probably keep the confounding parable. It's just a little easier. I'm no expert, but I'm no dabbler either. Alright. That feels pretty good. So I think the overall plan... We've got a couple things to do. Actually, not crazy about the time, because I really should have tried to get that treasure of the house from the... Pencil. I think it takes 60 seconds though, so I only need moth, so make the necessary invocations to the 3 to reveal a treasure of the house. Yeah, so that takes a minute. But that gives us a nice little cliffhanger to end on. So again, I do apologize. I know a lot of the start of the broadcast was talking about how there may not be more episodes. So if all turns out well and I'm able to manage my time well, I will have an episode on Wednesday. The way things are shaping up, though, it may be next week, which I believe would be June 23rd is the absolute latest at which I will be back. But the other option that I have is I will try and maybe use Tuesday to record some episodes. And if Tuesday doesn't turn out, that doesn't rule out possibilities of further episodes. So, like I said, please take that Monday as the absolute latest. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.